Okay, so actually, before I say anything, I would like to confirm
Uh,
you've only watched the first episode of Oshi No Ko, right?
I have only watched the first episode. That's correct.
Okay, so I guess the best place to start would be, what did you think of it?
Well, I really enjoyed it. I thought this first episode of Oshi No Ko was really strong as a start. It hit me in all the right places to get emotions out of me. I was crying at the end. It was perfect. I loved it.
Okay. Do you want to elaborate any more on that?
Um, sure. So when it first started and we were introduced to the doctor character, I was a little on the fence regarding him because of how, uh, because of like how he was seeming to be betrayed in regards to like the younger girl who was terminally ill. You know, that was a little bit sus for me. So I was like, oh no, this isn't going to be one of those animes, right? But as it went on, I became more endeared to him. And as that happened, and as the story went on in regards to I and her pregnancy, you know, that part especially, I really liked that. I thought that was a really well written part of the story. It just hooked me in and kept me excited to see what happens up until the point where the guy gets murdered. Spoilers, I guess. And at that point, when we get into the reincarnation aspect, I was really intrigued. I was like, "Ooh, this isn't not at all what I was expecting." I didn't expect them to be reincarnated. I thought that the Doctor character would be sort of like a side semi-main character this whole time, and that I didn't expect him to be reincarnated. So when that happened, I by that point I was already really engaged. But when that happened, now there's an extra layer of like, oh, so reincarnation exists in this universe. So that's cool. And I really I really enjoyed the middle part when they were children. It did a great job at building up their relationship with I, and I really enjoyed it. So I'm not so yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Okay.
And that's
Um, do you have any
something you'd
opinions?
like to add.
Do you have any opinions on how it ends before I get into how I feel about it?
Yeah. The ending, the classic. It it hit me out of nowhere. I was like, I knew that something bad had to happen because I did know for going in because Ilya, one of our friends, really likes it. I knew when going in that something bad was going to happen to I, and that she was probably not going to make it the rest of this episode. Um, but I didn't know exactly what was going to happen or how it was going to happen. So when she gets stabbed uh, in that specific area, I wasn't expecting it. It caught me completely off guard. And I was like, oh no. Um, I really enjoyed that too, though, because I think the mark of any good work is being able to surprise an audience member or viewer with something sometimes. And that caught me off guard, and I really felt for the characters. And as I was delivering her final words to her kids, I was completely uh, feeling all the emotions that are wanted me to feel. And I
Very
was,
dusty in the room suddenly.
it was a hell. The invisible ninjas were cutting onions, as it were.
Yes. Um, okay, so I'm actually really glad that you have this opinion of the show because um, first of all, I can say that I completely agree with everything you said. Um,
Mhm.
more or less, I fully agree, and overall, I liked it. I think it's okay. You know, it's I wouldn't go so far as to say it's like really really good. I would say it's fine. It's good. It's
Mhm.
enjoyable, which is about as much as you can ask for. Um, and I liked it personally. I think that it's very uh, I, I I think the characters were really really interesting, and I think the direction the story took is really fascinating. And I also like that it did well to explore pre-reincarnation Aqua and Ruby. I think that was really cool because a lot of like reincarnation plots don't do that. Um, so I think that was really cool too. Um, but that being said, I do have
Oh no.
some gripes. And this is the main reason why I
Yes,
wanted to
you.
talk to you in particular about this rather than any other random Oshi No Ko fan. Um, because
Mhm.
you're a writer, and I'm also a writer. And I
It's
wanted to
true.
talk about this from
We're
a
two amateur writers.
yes, and I wanted to talk about this from a writer's perspective. Um,
Mhm.
so the main issue that I have, I guess I'm not gonna mince words. The main issue that I have with the way that the story played out has to do with the way that it ended. um, and while it's true that I think that it was a very emotional scene. Her death was a very emotional scene, and it was a very tragic scene. I don't know about you, but it left me with a. After I saw it for the first time, it left me with like this lingering feeling of dissatisfaction. Um, like a part of me just felt sort of off about it. And I thought about it for a while. And this, you know, you just watched it yesterday, so I don't know if you have, um, you know, if you can really say the same, or if you've had enough time to let it.
I haven't been immersed in dissecting this scene necessarily.
Yeah, yeah. So like,
But
yeah, I don't know if you've really had enough time to let it digest, sort of, but I watched it maybe a month ago, and I've also
mhm,
finished the rest of the series by then, um, and I think I can confidently say that yeah, this feeling of dissatisfaction hasn't fully gone away, and that's why I wanted to make this video because I wanted to express this because for one reason or another, I seem to have the unpopular opinion here. But yes, to get to the core of the issue,
it is
I didn't.
quite unpopular because I'm going to be disagreeing with it.
You probably are, which is great because I wanted to have a discussion about this and not just a yes man.
Mhm.
Um, and
Yeah, not like last
and
time.
yeah, so I think that it's a I yeah, I'll just be blunt. I think that her death was poorly executed, and I think that it could have been done much better. I think that the way that they did it and the I think there was a lot of her character that should have and could have been explored that just wasn't. And there was a lot of, I think, wasted potential for character building there, in that she could have had a bigger impact on the story. She because in a
I think
in a way, I feel like she
I'm
was.
going to let you finish.
Yeah, yeah, sorry. Yeah, in a way, I feel like she was set up to be the protagonist, and then she was abruptly killed off, and that sort of felt a little abrupt to me. Um, and yeah, I just feel like, yeah, I don't know. You were gonna say something.
I was gonna let you finish first. So, in regards to the protagonist part specifically, to start with, I'm going to disagree with you. I think that in every way, pre-reincarnation Aqua was much more clearly set up as the protagonist
Okay.
of the story. He's the first character we are introduced to. He's a lot of the point of view character. I think that in every way he's the clear cut main character. You know, not to say that I isn't obviously like a main character in her own story, but in every way, this guy is clearly the man that we're going to be following. So I don't really see eye to eye with you on the protagonist
I
part
suppose that's a I
specifically.
suppose that's a good point, and reword the way that I said that. Not so much that I is the protagonist, more so that
She's a driving force.
yeah, she's definitely a central character. I think we can agree on that.
No, yes, obviously.
Yeah. Um,
As for it being abrupt, um, I think that's kind of the point. In a series like this that seems to want to take a more grounded and realistic portrayal of these things, abruptness is actually a pretty realistic portrayal of something like death. You know, oftentimes, especially in regards to murders, it can come just completely out of nowhere. You can be enjoying a really good day, and then suddenly someone comes up and stabs you, and that's just how it is. So,
right. And
yeah, I think the abruptness is kind of the point of
it
the
might be
situation.
the point, and like I fully recognize that that might be the intention that author was going for with that. But there's also the issue of like there is a reason that most stories don't have characters killed off before their character arc ends. And it's not just because that wouldn't be an entertaining story, it's also because if you're if you try if you spend the entire story building up audience investment in a character and then suddenly sort of remove that character from the picture, that I feel like does a lot to sort of um, it sort of detracts from the character in a way. I think it and it detracts from the story actually, to be precise, um, and it feels like like I in particular is her death is um, a event that I feel like occurred more as a more for the shock value than actual narrative importance. Um,
I'm going to have to disagree
I this feels
in this
weird.
case as well.
This feels like
So in regard,
this feels like sorry, I'm interrupting you again. But if it feels
that's all right.
like
I interrupted first.
it feels like not so much that it's like, pure shock value. I'm not saying that it's fully unnecessary. And particularly of having seen the rest of the story, or at least the rest of the anime and parts of the manga, it's um, it is true that like there's a reason that she's killed off, but it also feels like I hesitate to use this term because I feel like it has a lot of negative. It has a lot of baggage, but to an extent, it does feel to me like she was fridged, considering that she exists in a sense. Her death happens to facilitate Aqua's
To provide the main character
to facilitate Aqua's revenge
motivation.
plot, basically. Yeah.
Well, yes, I there's a lot that could be said about fridging and whether or not it necessarily has a place in this conversation. Um, it's a difficult conversation subject to touch on because
Right.
to fridge a character is often reducing them down to an object that the story uses to propel itself.
Right.
And I'm not entirely sure if that's necessarily what happened here with I, but I'm also not quite as well versed in concept and history behind fridging to fully make any arguments against it. So you may very well be right, but fridging in and of itself, doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be a poor story.
True.
Uh,
Um.
so
Yeah. I'm.
I'm going to get back to what I was going to say beforehand.
Right.
Right. So in regards to though, with I's character arc being cut off, I don't necessarily agree that her character arc was cut off, but I'm going to ask you about that in a moment. But in the event that it was, I think that that would necessarily only add to the tragedy. That the tragedy being that she had so much potential, that she was finally almost there to reaching her full potential, at least close to it, only for her to die suddenly without fully reaching it. I think that her character arc was kind of concluded, in my opinion, with her final words to her children. Like her internal change was finished. She reached um, she reached the point where she could say "I love you" to someone and truly mean it. So she's changed, and that's kind of her arc. But I'm going to ask, do you think her arc is?
So, I think that it's difficult to say because one of the issues that or one of the main issues that I have with this particular scene is that or like the execution of this particular scene is that I feel like we don't get to learn enough about I to really understand her. And having spoken with some Oshi No Ko fans as well, I think that's kind of the point. Is that like the intention of the author is that you're not supposed to understand I, right? And that she's supposed to be like this mysterious figure who almost seems like too perfect in a way, but at the same time, like there's like a hint of like she's got shit going on. And even later on in the story, like even in the
Mm-hmm.
anime and not just the manga, like it's very clear that there's like it's about understanding. It's not just about Aqua's revenge plot. It's also about understanding who I is post mortem, and
Who I was.
or yeah, who she was to be precise. And it
Mm,
also ties into Aqua's revenge plot a little bit because in order to take revenge on her father, he needs to understand her mind to an extent.
mm,
And then there's also this. I mean, minor spoilers, but the whole thing about Ruby wanting to be an idol because like that's what I wanted of her, and trying to sort of understand the mind of her mother, the idol that she looked up to, and the like sort of recreate the thing that B Komachi had going on. So I think to an extent, it's kind of the point that you're not supposed to understand I fully when she dies. But at the same time, like I said, it feels like there's something missing there. And I don't
Now,
know if I can fully put my finger on it, but I feel like I've compared before. I've compared this scene to um, Ned Stark's death from Game of Thrones. Like
mm,
that is, I think we can agree, a similar character, or like
that's a very
a similar scene,
similar situation.
similar situation, yeah. And
Mhm.
the thing with Ned Stark's death is that it doesn't leave you with this feeling of, damn, I wish I could have more time with this character, right? Like during during
Mhm.
the event, it's obviously sad, it's obviously tragic, and you're obviously like, oh no, this is horrible, I wish that they could get out of this. But like, by the time season 2 is done with in Game of Thrones, like you've completely forgotten about Ned Stark, right? Like you don't, for better or worse, you're not really wishing that he was still around. Whereas the problem with Oshi No Ko is that even in, you know, chapter 134, I still see, which is the most current chapter as of the time of this recording, um, I still see people in the comments like, "Damn, I wish I was still here." So, if a character has made such a lingering impact on your audience that they still wish she was around 130 chapters later, like you've either done something really good or really bad. And
And let me guess, you think it's really bad.
yeah, yeah, I do because
I completely 100% disagree. Because, in my opinion, a death like this, especially the death of a parent of people really young, should hang over the series pretty hard. Not only the series, but the characters themselves as well. Now, I haven't watched Game of Thrones all the way through,
well,
unfortunately.
neither have I.
I
I gave up after
made it
season
to
2.
episode 6 of season 1, and I'm also only watched one episode of Oshi No Ko. But I still fully believe that it is, what's the word? I still fully believe that it's really good when you have a character like that who's so impactful, who's so important, and to have them not be there, and to have the audience believing that if they were there, that things would presumably be better for the characters.
But
I think that's really
but
good.
I
I think
think,
that shows a really powerful character and that you impacted the audience
see
really
see
strongly with them.
I think it's actually the opposite. The fact that your audience wishes that this character was still there says a lot to, or the fact that your audience wishes that this character was still in the story says a lot to like the failing of, or the waste of potential that you had by removing this character from the story so early. I'm not even saying like don't kill her at all, right? Like, if you want to tell a story about Aqua's revenge plot and the characters she leaves behind, that's totally fine. But the way that like it was so abrupt and it was so early. Like, especially when you watch the the first episode, it's like 130 minutes or 90 minutes long, um, an hour and 30
Mm,
minutes long. Um, but like the first 30 minutes of that is like all the pre reincarnation doctor and I, and they like get a little bit of interaction, but it's definitely like worthwhile interaction, but it's nothing compared to the interaction she obviously gets with Ruby and Aqua. Um, but it's
mm,
unfortunate because she doesn't really get much of that because she's killed off beforehand. And there's two of them, and there's also a story that needs to be told apart from just developing her relationship with Ruby and Aqua. I think that, well, I will raise, this is kind of a separate issue, but I will raise the issue that I think it time skipped too much. I think during, there was definitely stuff during that 4 year time skip that we could have seen, and I think it would have helped a lot for this, even just doing that much. But I think
I will agree with you there. There should have been a little bit less time skipping, and I guess we could have filled in that space. But I also disagree with the more broad point of us not getting a lot of time with I as a person. Because I think that what character development that we did give her and what we did see, I think served its purpose narratively. It got us to A, be endeared to her, and B, want to know more about her, which appears to be the inciting incident for a lot of the stuff that the characters are going to be doing here forward. Because it's the story's about learning more about her, and it's about avenging her. So I think that the time we spent with uh, did its purpose of getting us to like her enough that when she dies, we want to see the story through.
right, but
Does that make sense?
yeah, that totally makes sense.
Jordan, you some word salad.
I still think, like I said, that it would have been better if we had had more time with her. And in fact,
Yeah, I agree. I feel like that like 4 year time skip definitely could have used a few less time skips and
well, for
more
sure, and also,
time with I.
also I feel like she could have, like, there was more. Again, there was more story to tell there. She probably shouldn't have died so early in the story. And I actually did happen across um, a YouTube commenter who said something that seems to echo a lot of acclaim that a lot of people make about this particular series. Um, and just looking around, it does seem to be like a very common thing that people say, like a common little factoid about it. Um, and I should preface that this is all alleged, so take it with a grain of salt. But even if it's not true, and I kind of don't think it is, I'm kind of inclined to believe that it's not true, um, for reasons that I'll get into in a minute. Um, but even if it's not true, I think it illustrates the point I'm trying to make very well, and the overall fan mindset around this particular scene. So I'm gonna read it out. It says, in the plans for the show, I was not planned to die this early. While it's likely her death was always intended, Akasaka slash Yokoyari planned for her to be alive for longer. But as they were writing and drawing the manga, they hit a problem. I was too charismatic. Every time she's on screen, she devours attention. She pulls the camera away from her kids, even when the scene is about them. I instead grabs the viewer's face and yanks it back over to her. However, she's way too important for the series. She's the core main character, she's the title character, she's the advertised character. How do you deal with that? Well, change the tenor of the manga. Focus more into the media industry's problems, what happens to actors and actresses, what happens to idols, and that also serves to give Aqua a motivating drive. It could become fridging a character, except that Ai's death is the catalyst for everything that happens from this point forward. Her death has huge ripple effects across the cast, and they never forget her, unlike someone being killed simply for motivation. It is a shame, though, because Ai is a fascinating character. She's such a fantastic protagonist that it's painful to see her death. And that's the end of that. So, I do have some things that I want to say about this. First of all, I think I'll just get this out of the way real quick. I don't believe this is true. Because I don't know about you, but I think it's safe to say that any writer worth their salt would never, just never, ever, 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 like, kill a character because they're too charismatic. That to me just seems completely absurd. Um, because I feel like if, like, not only is it like completely contrary to what you would want as a writer, like I don't think you can ever have a character be too charismatic. I think the more charismatic the better. Second of all, writing a narrative is not like running an idol group, right? Like the lead idol, or the lead character doesn't pull attention away from other characters, right? Like I is absolutely, hugely charismatic both to other characters and to the audience, but it, she isn't. She's a character in a story that we are invested in. She is to suggest that she is, quote, too charismatic would imply that like any scene that she is in cannot have audience investment in any other characters in that scene. It implies that the scene where I teaches Ruby how to dance is not an impactful scene, because I is there, and that it completely ignores the fact that it totally is an impactful scene because it's about Ruby and it focuses on Ruby. And and to suggest that it revolves around I is to me just completely absurd. Um, so for that reason, I do think it seems kind of silly and, if anything, a little narcissistic on the author's point. So I don't think it's true. But it does illustrate that there is a very large portion of the fandom that is willing to buy into this theory. And I think they're willing to buy into this theory because they are unsatisfied with her death. And I think it's possible. I don't want to dictate, I don't want to be the one to dictate how people are feeling, but I think it's possible because I commonly get this as well, when I say, oh, I feel like her death was unsatisfying. And I commonly get the response like, well, that's the point. She's supposed to be this person who is like, so close to having everything, but it was taken away at just the last moment. Kind of like what you said.
I know my words, they're thrown back at
Yeah,
me.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. And I really hate to be the person who like tells people how they should feel about something, because I don't believe that's how writing or art works. Um, I think
Yeah,
yeah,
it is subjective.
absolutely people are free to make their own interpretations, but when people say that to me and say, "Oh no, the point is that it's supposed to be unsatisfying," well, I don't know if I agree with that, because the um, it's not supposed to. It's supposed to feel tragic and it's supposed to feel sad. And I think tragic is the right word that you're looking for because yeah, it's absolutely
Mm,
tragic that she's not reaching her full potential. That is awful. That sucks. It fucking blows and it's like such a slice of real life. Like, yeah, sometimes it just be like that. Um and for the tone of the story, yeah, that's totally realistic. But that doesn't mean it should be unsatisfying. I it doesn't mean that it should
I
leave the audience with this lingering feeling of, oh, she should have been in the story longer.
okay, so I'm going to state that I actually don't consider it to be unsatisfying. I'm not entirely sure if I said it was earlier, but I really don't think that it's an unsatisfying moment.
Hmm.
I think I consider it to be really good and impactful. I just I don't know if I have the words to describe how I feel about it. I definitely don't consider it to be unsatisfying on any narrative level. I think that it's really tragic. I think that it does its job perfectly. I think her death was handled about as well as you could handle something like that. Like, obviously, with a character this charismatic and all that, it's going to be difficult to find a good point to kill her off. But I think that that was a good area to do it in,
Right.
as good as it gets. I just I don't know. I don't agree that it's necessarily an unsatisfying ending, right, for her character. I think that her character arc is pretty well concluded if that's what makes it feel unsatisfying. Because her arc is I see it's difficult for me to like put this into words because reading subtitles and trying to process what the anime is trying to tell me about the themes and the characters a little bit of a struggle for me with anime. It's one of the reasons I try to watch dub over sub
Right. Right.
so I can get a better understanding. But the understanding of Ai's character that I received was someone who's never received love or been able to experience it, wanting to wanting to experience and to bring love to others, to feel love for somebody else. And in the end, when she finally has her children, she finally admits that she loves them. She realizes that's not a lie. I think that's the culmination of her character arc right there. It's not necessarily a long one or one that's right there on the surface for you to pick out, but it's there and it's a satisfying conclusion for her. So I don't really consider her
Right.
dying there to be unsatisfactory. I think it's impactful. I think it's tragic because she was not only had she finally reached the point where like she had love for her kids, that she had finally found someone that she truly really loved, but now she was reaching her goals as an idol too. So
But
yeah,
wouldn't.
I think it's tragic.
Yeah, I see what you're
You may speak
saying.
now.
I think that yeah, you make a good point, but also I feel like kind of going off of like what you said about how her arc was about trying to find love and trying to bring love to other people. She yeah, she found out that she loved her children, but also she didn't bring that love to other people, right? Like I feel like definitely the
That's
moment where she figured out that she loved her children, I think it was definitely an important moment for her, no doubt about that. I think that yeah, for sure,
see. I think
it's yeah, it's basically really important, obviously, but I think that there was still a lot to explore in terms of her and her relationship with her fans. I think that there was a lot that was potentially set up there that was never never delivered on.
Like what? Can you give an example?
Yeah, like so the whole thing about the one fan who was like yeah, she's got a fake smile, and then when she sees the kid and or her kids and the clip goes viral, and then he's like,
Mhm.
"Yeah, that's what I'm looking for." And then she's like, "Oh, okay, so that's what you're looking for." And then it's just never brought up again. And um, I was expecting her to be like, particularly like you know, like after she finds out. I was expecting her to find out at one point that she does love her children. Maybe not like immediately before she dies. And then she would realize like, oh, okay, so this is what love is, and then she can either realize that she doesn't care about her fans, or she can realize that she actually does care about her fans, and she can learn to sing and express herself to her fans and in her idol work more genuinely. Because up until now, her entire character and career has been built upon lies and lies and lies and lies. And I feel like that the thing that I was waiting for and the most important piece of her character would be to put on a performance that was not a lie. And no matter
Hmm.
how ugly it was, maybe it was just, her like confessing her honest, ugly truth. Doesn't matter. Like, I feel like she needed that, um, that honest performance. And I think that's why I don't think I mentioned this, but one of the biggest disappointments for me was the fact that she was killed before the dome performance and not after. And for a while, I don't know. I didn't know why that was, and I think that's probably why I didn't mention it today, because I wasn't really sure why that was, because that just seemed really strange to me, and I just assumed that maybe it was just me being like, oh yeah, it would have been cool to see the dome performance. Um, but I think that might be why. I think it's because um, I was expecting the dome performance to be that honest performance and that climax of a performance, so to speak. Um,
Um, I will grant you that it probably would have been pretty cool to see, but see, I'm having trouble parsing my thoughts on Ai's characterization
she's a very complex
because
character,
yeah,
and that's part of my
and
problem.
also
I,
I grasp the issue inherent here, but I don't know because I don't. Okay, so we're gonna start out small instead.
okay,
So we'll work back. Okay, so with in regards to the dome specifically, we'll start there.
okay.
I kind of expected. I'm with you in that I kind of expected like, oh, we'll see the dome stuff, and like maybe that's where she'll get murdered. No, I didn't expect it to happen before. I expected either during or
Well,
after.
I don't even mean that.
Or
I just mean like, dome or not.
I know what
Yeah, like
I know that you wanted her like character arc to to culminate there.
right. Or like even
Right.
if it didn't culminate in the dome, I still feel like it should have culminated in some kind of performance, and the dome just happened to be set up as a performance that would perfectly align with that kind of climax.
Right. Uh, So the thing in regards to that is I don't know if necessarily her character arc was really there yet for that, like because in order for her to be able to like share genuineness with her fans, you would need to have like that would at least add like another extra 15 minutes onto the episode, more than likely.
Right.
Because she has to reconcile.
I
And I
would agree.
understand there's like a little bit more. Yeah, I understand there's a little bit more there to have explored, but I'm not entirely sure if we needed to explore it. Which now brings me to the other part that my brain latched onto in regards to like the example I asked you to give, like the fan and the smile. Um, I think that part isn't really related to Ai's character arc necessarily. I think that's mostly just about like how absolutely screwed up idol culture is in Japan, and um how she needs to now, if she wants to make it, she needs to fake her truer, more genuine emotions. You know,
I don't think that's
like her
true.
smile is like super.
I,
You don't think that's
yeah,
true?
I don't I don't agree with you there
I,
because
I
I like it was kind of implied that this person who was criticizing her for the fake smile was like one person among a vast majority of like people who are praising her for her performances, and it was sort of implied to me at least that the reason that she like caught this, the reason why this one commenter caught her eye was because he was like the one negative comment, um or he or she, they, I don't know, don't want to assume. um but yeah, so that's basically what it implied to me, and that to me tells me that that it relates to her character arc in some way, because if it was just, idol culture, it's one person who cares what they think. But because it caught her eye and she, actually thought about it and put a lot of consideration into what they were saying, like even if she didn't act on it, she still definitely like um, considered it worth thinking about and worth putting thought into. I think that goes to show that it's definitely like, or it definitely was meant as a important development for her character, but I just don't see where that panned out. It was, to me, it was,
I
it.
I think that it panned out fairly clearly in it's just something that she added to her repertoire of things that she does uh, as an idol in order to increase her popularity. I feel like that was kind of pretty heavily implied
Can you explain what you mean
to
by
me. I
that?
think I just picked up on that. What?
Can you explain that further?
I just feel like it was an implication thing. Like when she says, "Ah, that's what you want." It kind of lingers on it for a minute, and I was like, "Oh, so she's going to like implement, like she's going to fake her more genuine smiles now in order to try to garner more
Oh.
popularity."
See, I
See,
interpreted
that's
it.
what I pulled
I
out of
in-
that scene.
differently, in
Yeah,
fact.
see,
Um, I, my interpretation was that lingering was her being like, okay, so where do I find this genuineness? Like, where do I find not genuineness? What's the word?
genuinity. No, that's not
Genuinity.
right. It's,
Where do I find this
hmm,
honesty? We'll go with that.
hmm.
Um, like, where do I
I know
find
there's a word.
this? I know there's a word too, but I can't think of it right now.
Hmm.
But yeah, that's basically what I interpreted that like. shot to mean is that she was thinking like, okay, my kids can bring out this honesty from me. So how do I find a way to do this on command? And how do I uh uh like I get this feeling from seeing my kids. How do I get this feeling from seeing my fans? How do I take what how do I take the feeling that my kids have given me and project that onto my fans in a way that I can express myself to my fans in a far more genuine way? Because remember that is what she wants to do at the end of the day. She became an idol because she wants to spread love, find out learn what love is, and spread it to other people if she can. Um,
Hmm.
so I feel like it would make sense if she was interpreting that as, okay, this is how I can spread love. I don't know what it is, but now I might have a clue as to how to connect with people better. Um,
See, and I took it the opposite direction. I was like, so she's going to use this. She's going to try to learn how to mimic this face in order to increase her
right,
popularity because that's what the people want to see.
right. But I
You
think
know.
the implication there is that it is something that can't be mimicked artificially. I think.
Mm,
Now I do know that like I is famously like hiding a lot of shit and really good at lying. And that
mhm.
was made clear I think in the first episode, but it's made even more clear in the proceed or uh in the following
Following
episodes and in the following manga chapters. Like that is made abundantly
in the
clear.
mango.
So
Hmm.
while it is possible that you're right and that she was like, okay, so this is what I gotta fake next time, I think that, yeah, essentially,
I mean, we could both be
the
right.
implication there is that it's something that can't be faked because, as we know, she does love her kids, whether she knows it or not. And um,
Mm,
uh, it, I think the implication is that genuine love is something you can't artificially create. And so that I think is the main problem that I have, is that it's like I said, it's seeds that were planted but did not pan out, and I think that's why.
right. Well, after some reflection that I just did 10 seconds ago, I'm just that good of a story picker aparter. Um,
Story picker
I
aparter.
think yes, a story dissector.
Story
Um,
surgeon.
but yes, but now you made me lose your train of thought. Look what you did.
Sorry.
Okay, okay. Serious. After some reflection,
You're
I think that we could both theoretically be correct because on one hand we have you saying that what she wants to do is to mimic this in order to spread love. What I'm saying is that she wants to do this in order to be a better idol. I think that we could both be correct
well, not so much.
because look, may I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Because looking at what I says when she's recruited in the first episode, or rather what she's told, I believe, that it's the idea that enough lies can eventually become the truth.
Right.
And I think if we combine our perspectives on that, we get this perspective where I is trying to lie enough and lie genuinely enough that it eventually becomes true for her in this case. Does that add up?
Yeah, I think it makes sense. Yeah, that's a tough one, but also I don't know how um I don't know how exclusive the two ideas are because like you know, I'm suggesting she wants to be a better idol because she wants to connect with and resonate with people better. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that particular scene was a moment of her realizing, like, oh, yeah, lies don't do that. No matter how genuine the lies are, they can't connect with people in the same way that the genuine truth can. Because, that smile when she saw her kids was genuine. Like, obviously, we can agree on that, I assume.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and that was what connected with the one disgruntled fan. So yeah, that's kind of how I interpreted it, at least. I do think you've got a point in that her
Her
reason, yeah,
philosophy.
her philosophy, her reason for wanting to become a better idol, and her reason for like adopting that feedback was probably like it might have been like twofold. There might have been a number of reasons for it, rather than just I want to be a better idol because I want to lie better, or I want to be a better idol because I want to be more genuine. But I also feel like even if the first reason is true in part, I think at the same time she wants the second reason to be the only truth, right?
Mm,
Like she doesn't want to lie to people, I think. As far as I've interpreted the story, she seems like like you said, enough lies become the truth. She wants to she wants to be telling the truth when she tells her fans that she loves them, even if it took
right.
lies and lies to get there. She still wants to get there. So it,
Right. Yeah.
yeah. Gosh,
I see what you're saying.
yeah. I don't know. This is
It's,
there's
it's a difficult scene to crack.
there is definitely a lot of complexity in this
Mm,
story, and what's funny is this isn't even the big scene. This is like the small scene. We could we could
yeah.
probably do like a whole fucking discussion on just this one scene. Gosh.
I think we just did.
Yeah, we definitely just did. Yeah. Okay. Layers.
All right. So,
Layers. The story is like
like
onions.
onions or ogres.
The story is like an I is an ogre. She has layers, which is why it's a fucking shame she
uh,
was killed.
I think the layers make it more impactful that she was killed.
You know what?
But all right.
You know what? Ah, no, I can't phrase this to you because you haven't watched the anime. What I was gonna ask is, uh, I think at the end of, at the end of the anime, and maybe not the current manga place as much, but at the end of the anime, I think there's totally like it totally ends at a point where it's like, you know, you could end a season of anime. It's not the end of the story by any means, but it's, a good stopping point. Um,
Hmm.
so I guess my question to that would be, if season 2 were to open with Ruby's death, it doesn't, spoilers. But if it were to, would that not be upsetting to you? And I don't know if you can fully answer that because you haven't finished the anime, but I feel like a lot of people would say yes, it would be upsetting. And I think that's kind of how I feel about Ai's death, right?
See, I can understand and agree that if a main character of a show just up and died randomly in the beginning of the next season after all the setup, that would be a problem. However, with Aya's case, because she was killed in the first episode, it really does feel like this was intentional, and therefore the writing for it was prepared.
Oh, well, it was
It,
absolutely intentional. I mean,
yeah, I know. Wait, I mean that the writing was like prepared for it. Like this was the plan all along. So
mm,
you're not supposed to be like super angry about it, especially because going forward, from what you told me, I is going to get retroactively character developed. So you're still going to get to see more development that's going to retroactively make that moment a lot more impactful, like and such. I really do feel like we've reached the end of her character arc. So I don't. I'm struggling to see the
well,
issue.
well, I guess then my question to you becomes, could you not have, all of that retroactive character building that we do for her, after her death? Um, could you not? Could you not have that happen while she's alive and it be more impactful? Like,
Hmm.
show don't tell, right? Like, it's one thing to have
Right.
a character, in the second, or this is like second, third, fourth episode, maybe, I don't know, very, very early on, um, where Aqua is basically asking a particular character, who happens to be the director of a TV show that also directed a film that I starred in at one point. Um, and so Aqua is essentially asking him, uh, if he knows who Ai's father is, essentially. Or who his father is. Ai's uh, partner, I guess. Um, but yeah,
Right.
who was it that I fell in love with is basically what he's asking him. And um,
Hmm.
the director says something along the lines, I'm obviously paraphrasing here, but he said something along the lines of, oh, I was kind of, uh, like not in a great place mentally until I sent her to this studio. I get I get the feeling that she met someone there, because once she started going there, like her mood improved drastically. That is something that I would
Hmm.
like to see developed from I, not told to us by another character. I would like to see I come face to face with um, the kid's father, and like think about and recognize, and through the way that she interacts with him, we as the audience learn that, yeah, this person meant a lot to her and like pulled her out of a really dark place. And even if he's a scumbag now, and slight spoilers, yeah, she does find out that part of the reason that she broke off with him is because she found out that he's a scumbag, as I understand it. Um, but yeah, even if she
Mm.
knows that now, like her still having lingering feelings for him would be way, way better to illustrate that to the audience than just having some guy tell us that we've never met before tell us about that. And there's another thing that I felt like was planted but never paid off is I meeting uh, Hikaru again would have been, or Aqua and Ruby's father. Um, I meeting him again, I think that would have been really interesting to see, and I think that would have been really great for not only Ai's character but also Aqua and Ruby's character. Um, and obviously he's not the type to meet up with her because she kindly asked on the phone, but like maybe the whims of fate are uh going a certain or blowing a certain way, and they do end up re-encountering each other, and then we get this interaction, and that would have been really fascinating. And like I said, this isn't stuff that necessarily has to happen, but it's stuff that could happen and or could have happened, and it adds to the idea that it felt like that I had a lot of potential that was wasted.
So, okay, now I'm going to throw your words back towards you for the spin. So, if we had gotten a whole season with I, and we had gotten to see all of the retroactive character development, but shown to us as like a whole season of build up, and at the end of it, it still ends the same way. I dies. Would you have preferred that?
I think it depends on the way that it was done. If it was done in the sense of like we just see the flashback scenes or see all the flashback scenes but in chronological order, like no, obviously that like I would not have preferred that. But if we see like more development and maybe she dies like, you know, I don't actually know how long after the manga takes. I think it's like less than a year though. It might be a couple years. But however long it is, like if we get like an extra year or two of story with and we develop a lot of this, more naturally, and I don't know what this story could look like. Um, I I could put some thought into it probably and come up with something reasonable, I guess. But um, yeah, I don't know what it would
Right.
look like. But I think that that kind of story, yes, I would absolutely prefer a season of I developing her relationship with her fans and with her children and with Hikaru and with her manager and all these other people. Yeah, I think I would prefer that, and I
Interesting.
know that that would probably be a very different story, but I don't
Yeah.
know that it would be different enough to pervert the message of and intent of the story.
Interesting. Uh, hmm. I guess I can technically agree with that.
Because I don't mind it if anime end, or if anime seasons end with the death of a important main character. I absolutely don't,
Hmm.
as long as it's set up well, and the character has had time to develop and we've had time to learn about them, and explore them, like, yeah, I absolutely would I
But
absolutely
isn't
don't mind um, a anime season ending with the death of a character who is maybe, if not the primary protagonist, but a central character to the story.
okay. So, mm, mm, but isn't it more isn't it interesting for the anime to have her children trying to figure out who she was and have like a bit of a mystery of
I
intrigue?
think it absolutely is, but I also think that there is more that we could have learned from I herself specifically that that is less impactful when learned from her children. Like, for example, when Aqua learns about where she met Hikaru, um, if we learn that through her eyes, that would have been a very impactful scene. But learning it through Aqua's eyes, it's just like, oh, okay, exposition, whatever.
I guess that's fair.
Um,
I can't really debate with that because I haven't seen
yeah, that's fair.
these parts of the anime.
There's
So I guess that's fair.
Yeah, I think kind of related to that, though, I do want to raise a sort of counter argument to my own point, which is that there's a particular scene in episode, I believe it's 7, um, where there's a particular character who you have not met yet, who
Mhm.
is probably one of my favorite characters, I'm not going to lie, if not just for this scene alone. Akane, who, for uh, a number of reasons, decided to study I. And um, there is a moment where Aqua sees her copying I for the first time, and she has the star eyes, and it is a scene that is like, oh my god, I got chills because it's so like she knows more about I just from studying her than Aqua does. And there's a moment where Aqua's
Mhm.
like, how did you replicate I's personality this well? And Akane says, I just spent a lot of time studying her. I read some of the stuff she said, and I decided to include some of my own headcanons about her into my behavioral patterns. And Aqua goes like, "Oh, headcanons? Like what are you talking about?" And then Akane says, "Yeah, so I came up with this theory that I actually had kids in secret." And Aqua's just like, "Oh shit." Like, this girl knows. And that is a great scene. And I think that um, it is a perfect example of how the kind of thing that you're arguing for, the kids learning about I and building up intrigue, um, could totally work and be really, really good. Um, but I also think, again, that shouldn't come at the sacrifice of I's development as a character. And that you can. I think that author missed a really great opportunity here to do what a lot of authors wish they could do with their story, which is essentially have their cake and eat it too, in the sense that he'd get to spend more time with I don't know why, or I don't know if that thing that the commenter said is true about her being, too charismatic and having to go away. Um, Definitely a very charismatic character, and um, uh, uh, spending more time with her, I think even the author would be able to recognize that that would be a really great thing. Um, and I don't think that doing so would detract from the story in a way. Um, so it's not so much that I think that the author made a poor choice in that with killing her off when he did, in that um, uh, or actually, I don't know if the author is a he or a she, but uh, it's not so much that they made a poor choice in that um, I it was wrong to kill I there, although I admit that I do kind of think that it was. Um,
Hmm.
but more so that there was, well, I mean, I guess it was also wrong in the sense that it was a missed opportunity.
Hmm.
And that like if I was to, if author sent me their draft of Oshi No Ko with, with um uh uh dying when she does, um this is stuff I would tell him as an editor. I would be like, well, hold on, why are you having her die so early? Because you could totally have way more development with her that would be way more interesting and relate to the story that you want to tell involving her children. Um, and it seems like a waste to kill her so early. Um, which does raise another thing. Like, I would really love to ask author about this directly and uh, try and see what their reasoning on this was, because that I am curious as to why they chose to kill her off when they did, and I am curious as if the too charismatic thing is true.
I mean, ultimately, we really can't ever know the true reason.
Right,
At least not until the story is finished and the author is more willing to take questions about that kind of thing.
right. Which it does seem to be
But
almost finished. So you know,
that's nice. I didn't know that.
yeah. So I think I said before, but it's currently at chapter 134, and it's
Hmm.
currently in the well, we don't know if it's the final arc for sure, but it's definitely like a very climactic arc, because Aqua is, as I understand it, Aqua is currently like losing his shit, as in like mentally unstable shit. Um, and Ruby is currently trying to learn how to become so that she can play the part of I in a documentary film about that Aqua is making, called The 15-Year Lie, that is supposed to essentially get back at their father, Hikaru, and uh, get like all the fans like riled up and draw him out sort of so that they can kill him, um, because that's what they both want is to kill him. And
Feel like there's easier ways to do that.
see, that's another problem that I have with it. I will admit, is that like I feel
It's a bit convoluted.
I feel like, yeah. I feel like there's a lot of suspension of disbelief involving Aqua's revenge plot. Like, I feel like there are easier ways to do this. Like, for one,
Yeah, I.
for one, ancestry.com. Like, and sure, it's not always reliable. It may not work. It relies on government census, which Hikaru might not be, part of that. His DNA might not be part of it. Um, but like in episode 2, we find out that Aqua spent 4 years trying to brute force a phone password to one of I's old phones that, like,
Mhm.
for all he knew, may or may not even have anything worthwhile on it. So,
Right.
so if he's willing to go that far, it's a little unbelievable to me that the idea of just doing like an ancestry test never crossed his mind.
Yeah, I get that there are some things that need to be suspended for the purposes of having a
Right.
good
And
story,
I
but
can I can, it's whatever. Like that's not a huge problem. That's a kind of a nitpick and I am willing to buy that, you know, um maybe he did think about it and sent it in off screen and it just went in empty. Whatever. Whatever the reason, I'm
mm,
willing to buy that, this for whatever reason is just not something that he can do. Um
right.
So, like, yeah, like I said, that's a little nitpick, but it's. I think these little nitpicks add up. I think there's a number of them that make the revenge plot a little bit like, okay, this seems needlessly convoluted. Like, um,
Like what really wants to be light Yagami.
yeah, like the whole thing about like the more variables in a plan, the more likely it is to go wrong. Like I
Hmm.
feel like you should probably you could have way less variables in this plan of yours. I feel like.
Right.
Yeah. But again, I definitely know more than you, but I don't know the full story because I've only read like parts of the manga. I haven't read the full manga. And I've also read like bits of the wiki, but again, like not the full story. So, um, yeah. So maybe it is explained, but yeah. As of what I know, I kind of don't. Yeah, like I said, it's a little bit like okay, it stretches suspension of disbelief a bit.
Right. Yeah, I think that this might be a conversation we'll have to come back to once I've seen all of season one at least.
Yeah, well, I would totally love to do that. But
We should also do more of these in general. There's a lot of things we can talk about.
that is true, and maybe we will. Um,
This was fun.
yeah, but yeah, we should totally
Anything more?
do that. I guess I'm just assigning you more homework because
You'll have to get in line. I need to finish Chainsaw Man so I
yeah,
can
that's
play more
fair.
Monk
That's fair.
and then Jujutsu Kaisen.
But anyways, it's a shame we haven't really come to an agreement or come to a consensus.
Hmm.
I think I've understood a bit more where you're coming from, which
Right.
is good.
I think I've gotten a little bit more of a grasp of
Right.
what you had to say as well.
So I think the best option then would probably just be to put this on pause until you at least finish season 1.
Hmm.
Or to put this conversation on pause. Uh,
Right.
yeah, but
Yeah. Let's put the call on pause until I can watch all 22 episodes.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, we're just gonna pause the recording, come back in like 20 seconds, and it'll be done. It'll be done.
Yeah. See. The magic of editing.
The magic of editing. Bum. All right. Well, is there anything else you want to say then before I end it?
Hmm. Nope. Anything for you?
Uh, I'm not stubborn. I'm right.
Hmm. Yeah, that sounds like something you'd say.
Nah, I'm kidding. No, I don't think. I don't think so. I see where you're coming from, and I said this at the beginning, but I want to say it again because I think it's important.
Hmm.
I like the series, and
I adore the series.
yeah, I like the series. I'm invested in the characters. I'm invested in most of the narrative. Um,
Mhm.
and I think that I think at the end of the day, I would not be as passionate about this stance if I wasn't, right?
Right.
I am passionate about my opinion here because I like this series. Um
Right.
and
And that's good. And you always want to see a series reach its full
right,
potential.
right, absolutely. And I yeah, I think that I enjoy it. I recognize that it has problems even aside from, you know, my disagreements, my hangups with the execution of Aya's death. Even apart from that, I recognize that there are problems with the series, but I enjoy it. I would
Hmm.
hesitate to call it, you know, like amazing or really, really good or whatever. It's good. It's fine. I enjoy it more than the quality probably is, and I recognize that, but I still enjoy it quite a bit. Um,
I enjoy it substantial amount, probably more. I think because I really do think it's pretty high tier stuff already. But I don't have the same problems with iStat that you do.
right. Yeah, and hey, I mean, I'll be the first to admit that, like, I is probably, you know, one of my favorite characters, like, ever.
Oh, for sure. Oh, maybe not for maybe not ever, but
No, like, probably one of my favorite characters, like, ever. And
mhm.
I think that's partly why I have this stance, is because it really,
Because you want more of her.
well, yeah, kind of because I want more of her, but primarily because it really hurts me to see a character that I love so much be, in my mind at least, like wasted a little bit in that sense. Not so much like
Mhm.
wasted, but you know, like not live up to the potential that she could have had as a character. I don't even just mean like narratively. I mean like, you know, the characterization potential, the development potential that she could have had.